Hello, U.S. history. All right, today you're going to do the first real reading comprehension quiz that we've done this year. I selected an excerpt from a book that is known as, or it's called All Quiet on the Western Front. You may have heard of that before. It's been made into a movie several times. It's been in print really since World War I was over. It was written shortly after that. It's probably the all-around most famous novel written about World War One. So a story set, it's a fictional account. All the characters are made up, but it's a pretty accurate historical context. The author was actually a World War I veteran, but he was a veteran in the German army. So you might ask, like, hey, this is an American history class. Why the heck are you using like an excerpt that's all from the German perspective? Well, that'd be a pretty good question. For one, this is probably, like I said, the most famous novel that's ever been written about World War One. For two, the experience for average soldiers out in the trenches was really pretty much the same no matter which country you were fighting for. Now, the Germans typically had kind of higher, more well designed trenches. The Allies, typically, the British, French, and Americans, typically had a little bit more food and supplies that way. But more or less, all these guys were stuck out in the trenches in the elements and suffering with the rats and the trench foot and the wet and muckiness and just all the rotten aspects of trench warfare. So I think no matter whose perspective you're looking at it from, a big kind of common theme in the book is that the war was pointless, for one, and for two, that this was a miserable thing that we put a whole generation of young men through, regardless of what country that they were, coming from or fighting for. I think it's a really great novel. I actually read it for the first time in college, and I've since watched the movie. It's been made into a movie, I think, 2 or 3 times, and I heard that they're considering remaking it again, which I hope they do because it's one that I potentially might use some scenes from in class. Very well done. It's definitely like a tragedy. And I'm not having you read the whole book. You're not going to necessarily get to know the characters. The main dude is Paul Baumer, and it starts with him kind of like leaving high school and getting recruited to the army. Like the opening chapters of the book are all about like these guys are excited to go prove that Germany is the best. Remember the nationalism and how they're excited and the war is going to be quick and they'll be home by Christmas. And then now where the novel really kind of picks up, it's like a couple years into fighting in the trenches and around 1917. So I want you to read the excerpt that I put in there really closely. Some very messed up things happen. Like a lot of the novel is like these guys dealing with boredom, or they're hungry and looking for food, or they're missing one of their buddies that they lost. But then other parts of the novel like really heat up and get intense when they're getting into a battle, or there's going to be an allied attack and they're starting to get shelled. Which in the chunk that you're going to be reading, they're getting shelled by Allied soldiers. Allied artillery shells are falling in on them, and they're panicking and freaking out. And you get to kind of see the difference between the new recruits and then these guys like Paul that have been out there for a couple years and they've kind of learned how to survive in the trenches. So what you want to do is after watching my video, go through and read. It's about a 10-page excerpt, almost a whole chapter out of the book, All Quiet on the Western Front. As soon as you're done with that, go over to my second post of the day and take the quiz that corresponds with it. It's a 5-question quiz, but I did double the points value. So like each question is going to be worth 2 points, just to weight it a little bit more because it's a fair amount of reading for it. So I would think for most of you, the text excerpt will probably take about maybe 15 minutes to read through. And then the quiz, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. It also would probably be handy if you left the text excerpt up on a tab while you're taking the quiz, because I'd recommend that you be able to go back and kind of reference what you just read. The quiz will be much easier if you actually do read through it all first. So go ahead and do that. Hopefully you like it and find it engaging. Usually this is one that, as far as reading comprehension quizzes go, most kids say, this is a pretty interesting little chunk of text. So hopefully you enjoy and ace the quiz. See ya.